So now that we have collected all the strawberries and the ingredients from outside, I just want to quickly take all of these and put them out so we know what we've got to make our beautiful jam. Now this is something that I have been making for many years, and when my kids were small they used to call it a summer in a jar because it had all these beautiful flavors of summer that reminds you of summer, and especially when it's winter then it's nice to open a bottle and just to have the smell of summer. So what I have, and I have already shown you but I'm going to put them out one more time, are my roses. So I always make sure that I collect the roses that are very, very strongly perfumed, because that's actually what's going to happen in the jam, that you have a very strong rose smell. And now this is a jam that's basically a hot jam, right? So you just take anything that's growing in the garden and just put them down and just cook them together. So this is the Gertrude Jekyll, the other one is the Bella Romantica. This is a Frederic Mistral. So just want to put out the roses, and I'll show you in a minute the parts that you can use. And then I have peppermint that I have collected, some lemon balm for the citrony smell. I've got some lavender. Now the lavender is not blooming as yet for me, but I can use the leaves, but I'm going to chop them up really, really finely and not use the whole thing. It smells fabulous. Now because of course this is the Mediterranean, so I need to add some Mediterranean touch to it. So I have a little sprig of rosemary and some thyme. Now this is very spicy, so it's a little bit different from the jams that I normally made in Germany. And these are all the strawberries that I have collected from the garden. And now I also have a bit of a bowl of cherries that I got from a friend, a very close friend of mine. So I'm going to use those and some of the leftover strawberries. Now of course some of them are really nice and you don't want to just put them in a jam, right? And so I'm just going to sort them, and the ones that are really nice I'm going to put them just to eat like that, because normally, you know, when I work in the garden and I just pick the nice ones and just eat them right away, because sun-kissed strawberries, there is nothing better than that. Trust me, trust me. So now that I have sorted the ones that I'm not going to put in the jam, the ones that are nicer, so I'm just going to, I put them in this, in my sink. I'm giving them a good wash because I just don't want any insects and things like that. Otherwise, of course, because it's in my garden, I know that I do not put any fertilizers, anything that's going to harm either the soil or the plant, so I don't do that. So that's pretty safe for me to eat. And I am actually right away putting it in on the scale, so I know how much I have, so I can measure the sugar according to the amount of strawberries that I put in. Now I normally don't actually go by the normal sugar ratio to fruit, which is normally 1:1, and I don't do that because mainly because my strawberries are already very sweet, so I don't think that I need that much sugar. And secondly, the sugar you use for preservatives, so if you really want to keep it for a long time, you can do that, but I normally don't like to do that. I also don't like to add too much sugar to it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through all these strawberries and sort them and clean them and cut off the top parts, of course, and then check if it's a good fruit, and maybe take off the ugly bits if there are any. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the bowl of cherries. I'm going to take out the pits as well and put it in this measuring bowl so I know how much fruit I have. Now when you're pitting your cherries, just make sure that you wear some kind of an apron or something, because this cherry stain is something that's very difficult to get rid of. So just make sure you protect your clothings. And yeah, and then all that I do is just cut into half and take the pit out. Now sometimes you have this little mechanical thing where you can poke it in and push the pit out. I don't have one, so I'm just using the plain knife just to cut through and take out the pit. These are really nice cherries. It is now cherry season. It's already started. Today I actually heard in the news that the first bucket of cherries was sent to the French president, which is a tradition from this area, from a place called Céret. And they sent the first cherries to the Champs-Élysées. So that's kind of nice. A little bit of information that no one needs, but anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. So the fruit amount looks like I have got a little bit more than a kilo, which is really nice, but I definitely won't add a kilo of sugar to it because that is a ridiculously high amount. So once I have these cherries pitted, and then I'll show you what I do with the rose petals. Okay, so now that I have cleaned the strawberries and pitted the cherries and everything, so this is a little bit more than a kilo. So I'm just going to put it back on the scale and see. So it's 1 kilo and 200 grams. So that's okay because I won't be using that much sugar anyway. So I'm going to put it in this heavy bottom pan. Now this is not high enough. Normally for jam you would need something higher. I might actually take something higher, but I really like this pot. So this one I have to tell a little story. So this is a heavy bottom copper pot, really a saucepan really, and I found this in a flea market here in Sorel. And there was this very lovely lady, and she was emptying she had emptied the attic in the house of her father. Her father had died. And then I found this, and this is already extremely heavy, and I love it. I love these heavy bottom copper cooking pans and pots. But then now that I look at it, this might not be the right height for it, because normally with jam what happens is that when you cook it bubbles, and that's really, really hot, and you have to be very careful that it doesn't splash on you or on your hands, and I have had that many times, which is why I have to probably change this, although I just thought this was such a pretty pot. So now I found an equally nice pot, because it's important that things look good. So I have put the strawberries and the cherries inside, so this is a little bit more than 1 kilo. And now with the flowers, so this is now the important part. So when you take the rose, obviously you don't wash it because you don't want the petals to get soggy. But the important thing is that when you take them apart like this, like so, what you want to avoid is you don't want to put the yellow bits in. So not the yellow bit. So what I do is that I'm just going to chop them off with a pair of scissors, because that's the bitter part, and that you don't want. And I just leave them whole, mainly because, you know, after I have cooked the jam, I'm going to puree it. So there is absolutely no need to now go bananas with trying to get things small, because I'm going to just puree that later anyway. So I'm trying to avoid the yellow bits of the flower. So just like taking it's such just sacrilege to cut these. But they are going to be beautiful. So the same thing with the Gertrude Jekyll, although the Gertrude Jekyll looks quite okay. I don't think I need to do a whole lot. I'm just going to take them off and leave those behind. And the Villa Romanticas. Oh no, this one has quite a bit of the yellow part, so I need to take that off, because that's going to give it a very bitter taste. This is unbelievable, the smell. I don't know, this it's crazy, right? Because when you think about it, there are actually roses that don't have a perfume. Why would you even want to do that? Why would anybody want to grow roses that don't smell good? I don't know. I would never do it. Okay, this one. It hurts. But I do want to avoid the yellow bits. Just that. Now, as far as measurement goes, I don't really care how many rose heads I put in. I had, I don't know how many I had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think I had 8, 9 of them. So how many ever you have in the garden. It's really mainly for the perfume. And it's gonna have this little bit of a hint of a rose taste as well, which is magnificent. So I have the roses in, and now we come to the herbs. We do the same thing. So I just use my scissors mainly because I'm lazy, and I am going to puree it later on. So just cut them in. So this is all the mints as well as the lemon balm. No stems, of course, just the leaves. Not too fussy about how I cut them. And then I have the rosemary. So that one too. I'm just stopping right before I get to the woody part because I don't want that. The thyme is something I can just strip off because the leaves are really very delicate. So there it goes. This is beautiful. I could almost sit in this right now. This is so fabulous. You can eat it right away. All right, and we have a bit of the lavender. Sometimes, you know, in Germany by this time what would happen is that my lavender would bloom, but for some reason this time in the mid it didn't notice yet. So maybe the lavender part will come later on when I can use something. Maybe what I should do is I should take the flowers of the lavender and I guess I should do something with that. I can make a syrup with it. But speaking of syrup, what would actually go very well here would be elderflower. So if you have elderflowers, just put 1 or 2 sprigs for the lightness of it, because that's a beautiful plant as well. And I'm looking for some elderflowers here, so I'm gonna take a walk down to the river and collect them for my syrup. And that's the other thing that I like to do in spring and summer, to have elderflower syrup. Okay, so I think, oh, that already smells incredible. Now, sugar. Let us see. So what do I still need to add? I now need to add the sugar. I need to add some lemon juice, and now this might surprise a lot of people, but I'm going to use a balsamic vinegar, just a little bit. I think balsamic vinegar and strawberries, they really go together really very well. I absolutely love it. So just a little bit of it, not too much. All right. And now for the sugar and the lemon juice. So I have my sugar here. So that's about ½ kilo of sugar. And some lemon juice. Now, you can of course use fresh lemon, that's not a problem at all, but I find it a little more convenient just to use this. And then because I normally don't use gelatin, not because I'm vegetarian or anything like that, but because I just think that maybe for a jam it makes more sense to use a plant-based gelatin, and this is called Agar-agar. And so what I'm going to do, I'm already going to throw in 2 sachets. That's about, I think, about 2 grams per sachet. And then once I cook it, and then I will see whether I need a little bit more or not, because I don't want it to be really solid and like a jelly. I do want it to be mousse-like, so it's spreadable, either in crepe or even on a piece of toast or something. So I really don't want it too strong. Okay, now I'm gonna give it a good stir so everything gets nice and mixed, and then I'm going to leave it and let it sit so the strawberries absorb the sugar and everything gets really nice and mixed up, And I'm going to leave it. Sometimes, you know, in Germany I used to leave it overnight, but I'm not going to do that here, mainly because it's a little bit warmer here and I don't want this to rot or anything. Although it won't, considering the amount of sugar that there is. But I'm just going to mix and give it a good stir and then let it sit maybe for 2 hours. And after 2 hours, I'm going to cook it. So I'll see you back then. The one thing that I thought might be fun to add, which I haven't tried before, but I thought why not try it, is to put the juice of an orange in. I think it might be kind of nice to have a tangy feeling, so not just the citrusy bit, but also the perfume of the orange. So, have a quick stir. Yummy! So what I have done after a couple of hours, it's already been 2 hours now, is that I have pureed everything, and as you can probably see, I'm just going to lift it and show you, this is now a very thick paste, and I'm going to now put it on a low flame to begin with, and I just saw that I lost my earring. Hey Coco, you found it! Thank you. Just put that to the side. So please don't mind if I have one earring. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to take off that one as well. Voila. So, anyway, back to the jam. So I just pureed it, and I also found some elderflower while I was walking with Coco, and I've added them as well. Just 3 florets, not a lot. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the other 2 sachets of agar-agar, because I just think that we're probably going to need them. As far as jars go, so let me just show you what I've done, or what I normally do, is that I just put hot water, boiling water, into the sink, and then I put these jars to just sterilize, and I'm going to add some more of the boiling water, and then let everything sterilize in the boiling water. You can do this in any way that you want to. I think many people put it in the oven to sterilize, or just cook them in boiling water, so whatever you feel comfortable doing. I just like to put them in the sink and then pour boiling water on them, and then use the tongs to lift them, because obviously they're very hot. So this one smells amazing. So what did I do in between while this was just sitting there? I was out in the garden, I went for a walk with Coco, I did my yoga, and I made a really nice bouquet for my neighbors. Let me just show that to you. Because I am going to go to their house tonight for dinner, so I just picked some things from my garden that I had. So I've used the red poppies, the roses, and some ranuncs, the aquila, and some mint and geraniums and everything. So I think it looks like a nice bouquet to take for dinner when you're invited. So there it goes. And now we have to let this come to a boil, and it has to be a really nice boil. But the important thing is that you should never leave the stove when this is cooking, because otherwise it just might boil over, and that is a mess you really don't want. So just going to let it come to a boil, and then I will lower the heat and let it simmer for a little while until it reaches the consistency that I want. And normally it's 2 to 3 minutes after it comes to a rolling boil. So this has now come to a really nice rolling boil. It's really hot, and so I'm going to reduce the flame and let it simmer. But keep stirring. Don't take your eyes off this moment. This is very crucial, or it might just boil over. So once you have reduced the flame a little bit and it has come to a simmer, And that's when you keep stirring and scraping down from the sides, of course, because you want all that goodness to come down into the jam. Thing to do is to keep stirring, of course, and then the way to test it, and this is something my ex-husband's aunt taught me, and she was fabulous, and she used to make everything herself, her own jams and her preserves and everything for winter. So the way to test it is you pick it up with a wooden spoon and then you let it drop, and you can see at what point it doesn't anymore, and that's how you know that it is done. One of the other tests is, of course, the plate test. So you put it on the plate and you let it run down, and if it stops, then you know that it is pretty much there where you want it. Now like I said, I wanted a little loose and like almost like a mousse, so I don't want a solid jelly. So I think for me this is almost right. Just gonna do it one more time. So I put a couple of drops and I let it go down, and then I can see where it stops. Alright, so maybe just a minute more, and then I should be ready to jar them up. And remember that you have sterilized your jars, so they should be ready to go. And I have these fancy tongs to take the jars out of the boiling water, so I don't burn my hand doing that. And then I have a piece of clean towel. I'm going to put the jars on the towel, and then very, very carefully scoop in the jam with this scooper, and put the lid on, and voila, label it, not to forget. So while filling, I'm really making sure that I fill it up right to the top. You don't want to leave any air pockets in, because that's just going to make the lid pop. But you don't want that, because you want sealed. Now, of course, many people, what they do, they take this again and put it in a water bath, and then boil that to really seal. It all depends on how long you want these jams to keep, right? I mean, mine don't keep very long because I use them for everything. So you can, of course, besides the traditional way of having that on toast and stuff, you can, of course, use them for if you make some sponge, and then you want to have a jam filling, so you can just take that. This is not the right lid. And then you can scoop it up. Sometimes you can just, I take a bowl of vanilla ice cream, and then I just put a little bit of the jam on the top, and that's really nice as well. So you can just about do or eat it any way that pleases you, and that's the main thing, right? You have to enjoy it. That's what it is about. And once you have filled up all your jars, and then you look at the pot and you see, oh my God, I need to deglaze this pot immediately. Best thing to do, take a piece of bread. Never, ever, ever, please, 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 please don't just pour water and clean it. Scoop it up first. So this has to be the best part. To dig.